Matt, Dan. How's it going?
It's going great.
Very
Awesome.
well, thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, guys, our next session is just a discussion around um, the community's product or the community's space, if you may, right? We have with us Matt Howley, has had immense experience with research as well as um, the community space. And obviously, we have Dan, who runs QuestionPro Research. He's president for QuestionPro Research and Insight. And I'm just going to just jump into it. And do you guys? I think we have enough time generally to cover. But we'll just try to adjust it as much as possible. So let's start with the first question that I would ask you, Matt. Let's start with you. Is why should you run an insight community in 2021, right? How is the market space looking, and where do you see this fitting in 2021?
Yeah, great question to kick off. I think as well, maybe I should quickly define when we, because I know some of you on the call might be new to the idea. When we talk about an insight community, we're talking about a group of customers that have been recruited to participate in insight activities in dialogue with your organization. That's one way to put it. And I think over time you see blogs or things on LinkedIn about, are they going out of fashion? Are they in fashion? Are they a fad? I think there's always a perennial need for communities, and one of the reasons for that is it's two-way dialogue. So a lot of your survey programs, Vivek touched on NPS, which is great, but that's a kind of, for the most part, it's a bit of a one-way repeating dialogue where you're measuring backwards. It's not flexible. So a community is completely flexible in terms of the spectrum of questions you can answer, the way you can ask customers to guide you. And I think it's evolved in a really nice way. So communities back in early days were often seen as, they were often touted as faster, cheaper ways of doing research. So you have people ready to answer your surveys.
Right.
I think it's about much more than that because of this two-way dialogue. And if you look across an organization, how many tools do you have to actually converse with customers? There's nothing quite like it. There are some organizations that are mature enough, I think, to have executives talking to customers, for example, in person. But it's a bit of a rarity these days, especially in a digital first kind of post-COVID world. Mm-hmm. So what that means is because you have that two-way dialogue, you can actually create the future and look forward. A bit like Vivek's example of NPS Plus, where you can ask customers, what do you think we should do? And actually have people vote on that and explore it in depth in a way that people in the organization can understand and interact with as well. So I think that's the essence of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we've always heard people say that, it creates, digital communities or online surveys also, for that matter, creates engagement, right? I think it's, like you said, if it's a one-way communication, it's definitely transactional. There will be data flowing for sure. You will be able to get insights, but I don't think that could qualify as engagement, really, right? Mm-hmm. It's something that you're asking for. It's just transactional, right? But I think for me personally, where I really I've seen a lot of customers get excited is when it's without your moderation, you're able to connect with other people within the community, right? That's the real essence, I think, for the communities tool right now. And that is something that is just not achievable by transactional service. I think they are good for their own purpose, but especially when you're looking for a good deeper insights, or you're looking for qualitative data, I think the two-way communication absolutely, Matt, has to be flowing. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I think also what we've seen is you can get really good interaction between, if you're doing like bulletin boards or different topics modules, where even you get engagement from two customers that normally wouldn't even talk to each other, but you can get insights out of that as well, which is really unique because I mean, yeah, you can kind of script and ask different questions to help facilitate this, but you're largely leaving that up to the members for this communication and this engagement, and really just listening to what they have to say. Where obviously on a survey, you're pushing that data, you're pushing that out, right? But here it's really organic. So I think it's unique in that respect. And then I would just say that what we found is, throughout this COVID time, is customers that had a community were extremely glad that they did, because it allowed them to reach out to their consumers directly and get the sentiment and to see how they were responding to different things. Whereas if you didn't have a community, it would take a little bit longer. It'd be a little bit harder to reach out. Maybe you'd be harder to reach them because they're worried about other things and you couldn't really have access to them. But I know when I talk to our customers that had a community, they're like, oh, thank goodness we did, because it really helped out. It's sort of like, you don't want to buy flood insurance after the flood, right? You want to get that ahead of time so you're covered. And I think that's really what a community can bring, not only for insights and ongoing, but also just in case you never know what's going to happen. So having it is kind of a good insurance policy as well.
Beautiful. So let's just continue on the same chain of thought. Like, what do you've worked with a lot of customers. You've been obviously running communities for a while now.
Mhm.
What are the few applications that you think just fit perfectly, right, for communities? And then obviously, Matt, you can the same question back to you too. You both have been independent and in different continents. So what are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I think Matt would probably agree with me here, is that to me, it's really about the continuous discovery and that process of being able to reach out at any time and have that quick access. What I've told customers, if they're just starting a new community, I said, be careful, because everybody in your organization is going to come to you wanting this or that, or, different insights done. And at first they're like, okay. And then they say later, you weren't joking. I mean, it really is like that, because it's unique that you have those quick access to customers. So I would say any type of research you're doing that it's not so transactional at a point in time, but maybe you want to get ideas about an innovation, where to take the product. It's a great way for that. Reaching out, as Matt was saying, and this engagement that you can't get with surveys is definitely a key point as well. So there's a lot of applications for it. And Matt, I like how you kind of separated it from, this is a community, this is a panel, and those two aspects, because they definitely are different. But there's a lot of application. Like, we have many clients using this strictly to get feedback on their products, or even more in general, just getting sentiment and what are my customers seeing out there. It can also be just a sort of a competitive community as well, where maybe it's not your core customers, maybe it's just a general mix of consumers that you want to be able to reach out to. That can be a segment of it as well. So it really kind of depends and can run the gamut there.
Matt, what are you seeing? What do you think are some good applications for communities right now?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of really proven track records in the three main spaces that we often talk about. There's product innovation,
Right.
marketing, and CX are probably some of the three main remits. Extending on the employee experience stuff as well, I am aware of more clients bringing in sub-communities of employees to create things. But for the customer communities, there is something as well I'd always recommend relating to the application, which is set a bit of a strategy or an agenda for it early on, in terms of what is it going to be. For example, you could set, the community could be all about innovation, and that might tie in really well. It might align with the innovation pipeline in your organization. But it actually helps if that alignment actually ripples through to the people in the community. They know that they're signing up to weigh in on kind of new product ideas and get involved, and as opposed to, say, a market research community where the topics might be a little bit more broad, and you might be really trying to listen to the trends and understand what customers are buying. Really knowing what you're setting out to do is quite, I think, is quite useful as well. Yeah, another example is senior executives. Are they going to be involved? Right. They may not. That's fine. It might be just left to the research department and marketers to jump in on. But I have been aware of some communities where the CEO wants to meet or have some involvement and wants executives to sit in on watch some discussions and actually them pose their own questions. And that's incredibly powerful. If that's on the table, it's something that could be part of the strategy as well.
Beautiful. I would like to actually open the discussion a little more. Obviously, I have seen a great transformation, at least from when everybody used to refer to it as, let's say, panel management software, right? Those were the keywords. Panel management software then evolved into the communities platform that we all know today. So at least in the last 7 years, I would say, there has been amazing work that has been done in technology specifically for this particular field, and they were more about going digital, about mobile research, and really bringing life into panel management. I think that's when it became community, right? When it got life. What do you guys think? I'll start with you, Matt. Is next 7 years, right? The next spectrum, if you may, right? Is it going to be more about how do you predict, or what do you think the engagement level is going to be? Now that we're all on mobiles, we can't get off Instagram stories and video format. I'm of the opinion that even photos might just become obsolete. I don't see anybody clicking pictures anymore, right? It's 5-second videos. TikTok has taken over the world, right? When technology is taking a turn in other platforms, do you think it's going to have an impact on communities? And what do you think of the next 7 years, at least the way research is being done?
Yeah, it's great. It's almost rhetorical in that it is, but let's talk to the challenge in that. I almost think of it as you could almost call it content mirroring, in that the better the quality of content that you create as a community manager or as a brand, the better you're going to return back from your participants. So if you're running a community just in text form, it's gonna, that's going to be a struggle, and you're going to see that in the responses. You're going to see, short verbatims that you're going to have to mine. If you mirror that and you share some examples, we had an example of some recent work where we're doing. Ray and I will actually pile in and share our own examples to set the agenda and set an example of the behavior that we want from participants. And so if we're asking a video from you, you're going to have to see a video from us.
Right.
If you want to hear, I want to hear your story, well, I better tell you my story. And so I think this mirroring of content is really powerful, and it really it goes the way of the macro trend in that. I think we know all around the world, people are getting cameras in their home offices and getting lighting, and we're all learning about how to look good on camera. I think that's going to be part of community life as well for a community manager. We should be expecting that we're going to be on camera, and likewise communicating with customers on camera as well.
Absolutely. I know. Look at you and Dan. You guys look perfect on camera.
Well, I think, Matt, I think that's a great point, because I think it creates a level of trust too, right? And not that the research, the feedback I'm giving is not just going into this black box where I don't know where that's going. It's, if I see, oh, Matt is telling me what to do via video, it creates this level of trust that I think is really powerful, and really to get more of the insights that you need out of the community. So that's a really good point.
No, same thing for you, Dan. Generally, obviously, you are even closer to product, closer to engineering, right? I know, obviously, you guys have not planned for the next 7 years, but I wish you had. But obviously, it's not possible.
Yeah.
Generally, where do you see this going? Like, is video going to be a very big part of the community generally?
Yeah, I think video is going to be huge. That's why we invested significant resources in getting video discussions out, and also this kind of live cast, which is a research feature, but you can definitely use it for communities as well. So I think video is going to be a key component. And then I see more of clients want to collect all this data in the community, but they also want easy ways to digest or to get that data out, right? So
right.
I think being able to bubble up these insights and say, okay, you asked these questions in the community, or you did this video discussion, you want these quick insights coming to you, like, and not have to weed through a lot of the comments and do all this coding, like more sort of, hey, these are the insights and the quick summary of it. So I think the more automated insights, I think, will be a key point. And then I think video as well. Like, Adi, I think you're right. Like mimicking sort of what we're seeing on social media and those interactions,
Right.
I think is really key in wanting to get and collect good data, is mirror those experiences that people are familiar with. I'll say one thing, and I think maybe COVID and it's probably helped this, is that it's it's had customers that normally wouldn't want to do online qualitative, and that's really, when we think about communities, what it is. It's kind of forced them to at least dip their toe and try it out, where they may have had some reservations about doing it in the past. And I say that because from what I've seen, largely market research world, they like tried and true methods that they can rely on. So doing new things is a little scary,
Right.
but sometimes it takes these things to kind of push people a little bit in getting there. So I would say, like, yeah, for the next 7 years, I'd love to be here, but realistically, I know we'll probably get a little bit of the way there, and that'll be okay, and that'll be great for the market because it's night and day from where we're at now.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mhm.
I think we have a good question from our friends at Viacom, Singapore. They've typed it in here.
Mhm.
But I think you both of you can obviously address this. So the question is, how do you make online communities a successful tool for audience from non-savvy backgrounds, right? From more of the rural environments or the rural territories, realistically. So
Mhm.
let's start with you, Dan. What do you recommend um, for a situation like this?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, from my experience, it needs to be mobile friendly. I think a lot of these areas are probably more apt to have, they're accessing it on a mobile device as opposed to a desktop. So you need to be mobile friendly, lightweight, easy to run with, I think, are probably some of the key characteristics. And I mean, do video when you can, depending on, internet connectivity and those sorts of things. But I would say those are the things that you want. And we have an app that you can use for the community as well. So that's, I think, a key component to make it easy to access. So really, if you have a smartphone and access to good Wi-Fi connection, you should be able to do and collect research from the community. I don't know, Matt, do you have any experience there, or what would you say to that?
I once did a study with a community study with farmers around Australia, which we
Oh,
had
there you
input
go.
into, and they actually used like your mobile example. Mobiles were a big part of it, but they didn't always have coverage. So
Mhm,
offline ability to input information offline was quite key.
mhm.
But I think the learning was actually to know the audience and just set things right for what you know about that audience. So
Right.
maybe the Zoom focus group is not may not suit that particular audience, so you can dial it down. And I still think the rule of like creating great content can even happen in written form. It's really about crafting
Right.
Mhm,
great
mhm.
messages and dialogue with the customers. So as much as I think we talk about high tech trends, I think it's fine to adjust it if you have that um, essential communication at heart. Yeah.
Right. No, I think also with a combination of something like an offline collection model, right?
Mhm.
I think that is a great help. We've done a lot of research where we have NGOs that have gone all the way down to Africa to get information about probably during the Ebola, etc. And the one thing that obviously comes out of it is that getting it obviously collecting the data and becomes that much easier, right? So you don't have to spend a ton of resources to just collect data, right? Which used to be which
Mhm.
used to be the case for a lot of these research companies and these NGOs, right? They were having a hard time just getting the data together, right? So I think using the technology that we have, we've been able to reduce that friction, and we're going to be hearing more about this in the coming session too. But I think that one is it really helps companies that want to run a community or have research specifically done in these rural areas, right?
Mhm.
Obviously it's going to be difficult to get them to register into a community, and so on. So we can obviously have some kind of solution there wherein we register them based on a phone number, or rather than having an email address, right? Things like this, small things like these can be done to increase your exposure in these rural areas. No, I think that was beautiful. So far, I think that was the question that we had from Jeremy. Overall, I think I'm just going to call it a day for this particular session. We have a lot more happening, but I think I really enjoyed it. The questions that have come in, and the response that we've been getting on Slack as well as our Zoom chat has been amazing. Just that we're a little tight on time. We can't take more questions, but there would definitely be one. I think you can continue, Dan. I think you have an update for the group when it comes to the research platform communities. Matt, thanks a lot for your time. Thank you, Raymond, again. Thank you for taking the effort and spending so much time with us. We love you, obviously. We love the guys at Picnic. And anything you need from us, anything, please do reach out. We'd be more than happy to help you out with anything you need.